Okay, here we go. All right. Everybody should see the screen. Okay, so what I'd like to start is just with let's get this out of the way. All right, cool. Just want to kind of start with a broad overview of what are some kind of current trends in society that are kind of impacting what's going on, what I'm seeing in the job market. Number one, of course, around 70% of all jobs are not even publicly published. So what that kind of goes to show is, a lot of people are like myself are on extended job hunts, and we really don't understand why we never hear back from people, why we're ghosted. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the person who's going to fill the role is already chosen before the job gets published. So that's just one of those things that I've kind of noted. Number two, we've all experienced some changes in social connection. The pandemic kind of left us all very much with different relationships with digital. All of us have really gotten native with connecting in async fashions. So the way we are connecting, we're on our devices. That's more of a natural tendency. Number three, the attention crisis is something that's been going on for like the last decade. And it's one of the symptoms that's part of digital behavior. And the way this impacts the job hunt is you're sending signals to somebody who's on the other end, right? And so it's sometimes it's difficult for them to consume all of, from a recruiter standpoint, for them to consume all of the different applications and resumes, for them to consume portfolios that are elaborate, have elaborate descriptions, and have long case studies. So you have to be kind of mindful that everything that we're putting out there, we're not dealing with, the tension has decreased to about 9 seconds over the last decade, which is actually shorter than that of a parakeet. So that's one thing to kind of keep in mind with your behaviors. And then number three, um, there's been a lot larger focus on mental health and wellness. And so in our job hunts, I know I'm gonna contrast kind of a traditional approach and a newer approach. In our job hunts, we need to bring those focuses into play. A lot of us are dealing with a steep change because of AI. It's a current it's a really big factor inside of not only job hunts but inside of companies and in our economy. So mental health is just one of those things that we kind of have to manage. Okay, so just that's just a preface. So I'm not a recruiter, I'm not a manager, I'm a UX designer, and I'm actually open to work. I've been looking for the last 12 months. I've had a long career, but this is the toughest job market of my whole career. I've only had three stints of unemployment. And I'm gonna kind of use those three stints to kind of help draw out some patterns here. But one of the things that I've learned in my last stint was that, it's because of some of those patterns, the spray and pray technique of kind of sending out as many uh, resumes and applications as you possibly can find job posts for, that is not effective. And at the very beginning, the tip top beginning of my job hunt, of course, I started in when that, and I also started to see some of the patterns that I just witnessed above in society, and I decided that I was going to make a change in my job hunting behavior. And so that's how I came to kind of understanding this transition and this transformation. So like I mentioned before, your traditional strategy, um, we're gonna call it like casting a wide net. It was that spray and pray technique. It really started back in to be completely honest, back in the catalog data days, where you would, it's the noisy approach of sending out more messages with knowing that there's a percentage of people that are actually going to respond. You're going to hit quite a few people that aren't, but you know that there's actually a percentage of success there. The type of job hunt experience that this strategy it returns as more of a puppet-like job hunt experience. You feel controlled by the response. It creates a lot of situations where you're kind of helpless. Um, just like in the information age, it's all about the numbers. How many applications and resumes you can send out is gonna result in a rate of return. So when I transition to a more a better approach, I'll call that a better approach, but a more modern approach, I started to use my actual UX design skills and my inclination for human-centered design, and I came up with this targeted journey approach. And so you can see with the targeted journey approach, I'm headed in this lighthouse direction. I've kind of come up with my own goals, and then I'm building up as I have my failures and my successes, I'm building up experience. So each time I take a step, I can reach different milestones. I can see where I'm progressing, but I'm still moving towards that same direction. So rather than it being just about sending out and making an efficient action workflow for just sending out jobs, I'm actually using each one of my experiences and my actions to get better. And that continuous improvement. And so my job hunt experience is very much more like what you would expect for like a UX designer. And so how did I get to this point, right? How do I get to the point where I can actually design? Well, what we're gonna talk through here is how I made that magic happen for myself. I'm gonna examine some patterns and show some insights on how I found some strategies and how I kind of came to this strategy. And and then I'm also gonna help to just like a UX designer would, I'm gonna take some of those strategies and I'm gonna bring in the user focus. Um, I took a survey before this presentation, and I asked specifically asked UX designers about how they were feeling and what are some friction points uh, that are in the current job hunt market. And we ultimately we feel defeated. So I'm going to talk about some different ways that we can work through inspiration and work through those friction points. Thirdly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how my own transformation worked out and some successes so that everybody else can learn from my learnings. And then finally, I'm going to leave you with some tools so that you might manage your own um, journey, your own targeted journey. And then lastly, we'll go into some discussion to where we can have more of a interactive discussion or exchange on how everybody else's job hunt is looking. All right, so let's let the magic begin. So first of all, from a very high level, this is what a standard job hunt might look like. It usually starts with some sort of reflection event, whether it be deciding you want to change jobs or a layoff, or maybe you already had some sort of a career path and you reached a point where, you know, the average person switches jobs every 2 years. Maybe you've reached your year and a half, and so you're looking for the next year at making a job. So you're going to start your job hunt. So then you start with some outreach. This is, you know, shaking hands, going to some events. It might be starting on your job posts and job boards and search engines, to start finding places to apply and companies that you want to work for. Then you start to get some responses and you move into the interview phase. And then finally, in that job offer phase, you're working through negotiating and making sure that you have the right deal in place so that you pick the right job and you have the right situation. So this is what it looks like from an action standpoint, but this is what the experience really feels like. It doesn't necessarily go from reflection on through, right? There's all kind of friction in place in between. Um, you know, you might have started out with this perfectionist view of how your next job is going to make you feel. Then you started feeling a little bit shy once you realize that you actually have to talk to people. And then maybe you wound up with low confidence after you've had a few bad experiences, and you have to go back to the drawing board and start from that reflection phase all over, reflection phase all over again. Or maybe you have some financial stress through that reflection phase and you have to find a new job because you may need to make more money. And then maybe throughout the interview process, that lack of money causes some relationship stress. So there's all kind of frictions that are actually happening throughout the experience. What I'm going to talk about next here is how we make some sense of what we've gone through in some of the tougher markets. So I mentioned right now that this is the toughest market that I've been in. And so I was curious how exactly how tough and what's so unique about this current job market. So I put together this is a illustration that shows a little bit of a framework of how I came across or came to patterns. Um, of course, in terms of gathering patterns, I did a lot of kind of research from my own observations, but also looked back and did some historical research um, through three of the more toughest job markets throughout history. And I started to see some of these patterns. And from a micro standpoint, where you can see that's the whole picture. It's like our economic environment throughout the different job hunts that I'm gonna detail. There's a micro level, which is that part you really see. And so, from standpoint here is UX designers. That might be the tech industry, or it might be the UX design path, how it's kind of matured from when UX first came around in the 19 late 80s until now. And then finally, there's this mini scale or scope of the patterns where it's really more on a personal standpoint, how everybody personally experienced, like that last slide I just showed you, some of the frictions throughout their job hunt. All right, so these are the four different job hunts that I kind of used to kind of gather the patterns. I started looking at the Great Depression, which we all know is the worst of the worst job market you had to actually ever had to experience if you had the experience. Of course, most of us probably weren't born around then, but the worst year, the Great Depression actually lasted more than a decade. But the worst year was in 1933, and in that year, the job unemployment rate in U.S. reached 25%. That's 25% of the U.S. population was unemployed. You can see the types of job hunt strategies were very much in person. They were very archaic. You had to wait in lines. You had to get out there and actually, put boots to ground. And it was very much like a first come, first serve. Um, and so you can see from there to now, the biggest commonality um, is that job hunt duration. That's what's making the current market, to me, the experience so unique. You can see during the dot-com burst in 2001, that duration was about 3 to 6 months or 26 weeks. That was when online job hunting really became the essential job hunting tool with the dot-com bust in 2001. That was also right around the same time of the 9/11 attacks. But you can see the unemployment rate and the scale of unemployment at that particular time. It was way bigger than it is now, but it was way smaller than that Great Depression. Um, and the losses were really focused more in tech in one particular area as opposed to in 2008, you can see that was during the time of the birth of Web 2.0. There were a lot of the more notorious social media companies were coming off. So your job hunt strategy really you had to come in with some social branding and some outreach and networking. It became really important at that point. If you could do that early on, you really found jobs very quickly. But ultimately, you can see how long the job hunt was. It was a lot smaller because people could communicate digitally. And now you can see 6 to 12 months. That's my best guesstimate. Experts are saying 6 months. But in my survey that I did before this presentation, I got uh, I got feedback from 8 other designers, and pretty much 12 months is about standard. So I'd love to hear in the conversation at the end um, what that really looks like for everybody else. But you can see the scale of what we're talking about is very much centered in tech, and it's still way about half as much as some of the bigger worst job markets we've ever had or I've ever experienced in my lifetime. Okay. Right. So here's some of the patterns that I noted. Um, Number one, government consulting, and that pattern was really big in the Great Depression. It's been a strategy that has actually worked um, many times in the past. I know it was really big in 2001 as well, because it was kind of we were under a wartime industry. I mean, sorry, a wartime economy. So just what you can kind of do with these patterns is you can kind of look for different ways that you might pivot or redesign your current job hunt. So if you aren't targeting one particular industry right now, public sector and government consulting, they have a very recession-proof standard, so you can kind of target those. When we talk about this flexible portfolio, that doesn't just necessarily mean your skills. It's very important as a UX designer that you integrate your hobbies, interests, and other things that can help you to stand out into your portfolio. I actually had one of my managers who I just was talking to the other day, and she does rave music, and she's creating while on her job hunt, she's been creating a several albums on SoundCloud. Well, when she mentioned that in her job interview, they actually wanted to add that to as a new program that she could start to design. So that made her be able to add unique value. So it's very important as UX designers that even though it's very tempting to just sit there and hit job boards and look for job titles, that you figure out ways to humanize your job hunt so that it is more attractive to other people and other needs outside of just UX design. Increased training needs is one, of course, that's very related to the fact that we're dealing with AI and everybody is needing different stuff. And then, of course, return to in person is something that was started with the Great Depression and is still very much relevant now with a lot of people coming out of the pandemic and being able to identify local and localized opportunities can set you aside from a lot of competition that might be out there trying to look for remote work. Another thing that's really unique is these mass layoff events. Now, if you're anything like myself, they've kind of been around for at least the last 10 to 12 years. If you remember the Enron incident, that was really characterized by that mass layoff event. But a mass layoff event is anytime more than an organization lays off more than 50 employees at the same time. The one thing that's really interesting about current job hunt is if you've been laid off via Zoom or Teams, those are really unique to this particular job market. And in addition to being laid off remotely via camera, one other thing that's a little bit different than the other three of references, the social media impact. We are all able to see and hear because of places like layoff.fyi and layoff.com. When somebody is laid off, or even we can learn to be paranoid, and we were all pretty much all watching to see if our company is on those lists. So if we need to start our job hunt earlier than it really is. So these impacts are definitely unique. Um, I've felt like with this particular time around, the waiting periods have been very unique. So I mentioned my job hunts lasted 12 months. You can see here on this kind of a just generic breakdown of what I've been waiting around for. Over there on the right, a lot of the reactive parts of my job hunt, i.e., like waiting for the results of an interview, or once I've applied to a job and waiting to see if they want to interview me, those have been the worst ones. So, I mean, we're in a company centric market, but it's definitely felt like worse than what would seem to be productive to make a decision about who they're going to interview or who they're going to actually what they're going to actually do next. And it's leading to these feelings of defeat. This is just a generic little graph that I put together from my own job hunt data. A lot of people are putting these out. I've seen them on LinkedIn. What they do is they kind of show you exactly the breakdown of what your efforts look like, particularly if you've started tracking which jobs you've applied for. You can see that this high number in the 400 is the number of applications that I put in. And you can see after 4 weeks getting one response, right? The rest of those 300 were just no responses. It was just like you spent the time to put together the application and it just disappeared into black dust. Um, about 120 people of those responses, maybe they came, the other 300, 120 of those 300 actually did send a rejection email. So that's somewhat decent. I mean, it's not positive, but at least you can have resolution. And then out of the, 200 some odd that are left, they either came after 4 weeks, at the point where I've forgotten about the company, or again, they didn't send anything whatsoever. And then at the time when I put this together, I had one response pending, where sometimes you have recruiters that reach out and you're still waiting to find out if you're going to actually get called in for an interview. But throughout this whole process, I only received one offer, and you can see there's trends here about how many rounds of interviews, which I'm going to talk about later, and where the rejections are coming from. And even still, even after two and three interviews, sometimes responses don't even come within 3 to 4 weeks. So it's paralyzing just to wait. One other thing that's unique is interviewing is now more like auditioning. Four more rounds is pretty common, and the rounds are not just the same. It's panel interview, it's video interview. There's a little bit of something to make everybody a little bit on edge. If you like to talk, you might get stuck with a show and tell, and then you have to basically present something from your portfolio. I don't have the thing listed here where you do spec work, but that's definitely it's definitely common. And then your portfolio is always really strong. It's really been a key part. But right now, it's more of the portfolio experience, more so than having like a slick website or just putting up a few really good pieces of work on Dribble or Behance. You really need to do a good job, have a portfolio strategy to pick out the right pieces and then sell the right pieces to the right point in that interviewing process. And it's also really helpful to have a way of efficiently updating your portfolio. So I found design systems and even heuristics and feedback loops are really important as far as having your portfolio. So you really should be doing UX work on your own portfolio. All right, so those are some patterns. What did I do with those patterns? And how did we get started? Well, the first thing is those are all great strategies, but even with stuff like the portfolio updates, I'm just ready to quit my job hunt because job hunting, of course, we all know is a job in itself. So I don't even know, like at one point throughout this, I was just ready to go back to practicing design. And so that's when I started to create this because I was like, at least I can do design work. At least I can do workshops. At least I can analyze data and come up with insights and, get in there and mess around with the UI on my portfolio or, get feedback and build, user goals. I really missed just doing design work after 6 or 7 months. And so I started to just really examine, I just wanted to kind of put together something that really examines and really drives home that difference between this traditional approach, which is really based in action design. A couple of the key actions is finding companies that match and then being able to pitch yourself for that job that matches, as opposed to a UX design approach where you're using something like a human-centered design approach like the one that I use, where you're looking at designing how to overcome friction. Like I mentioned before, you might have 5 different types of interview that you have to get used to. How do you overcome, shyness, different feelings that are associated with that? Maybe you have a faulty or a poor webcam, or you don't have the best quality speakers, or whatever it is, that the friction points that are going to occur in your interview process. And then how do you design something more of an experience with the user in mind? Whether that being the recruiter, the hiring manager who you're interviewing with, or it just be a referral or someone in your network who you're trying to get an introduction from so that you can actually get an interview. How do you actually put UX design back into your job hunt? Well, the first thing is I wanted to talk about one of the bigger friction points that I see have observed that's pretty common. And that's this idea that, hey, you know what? At this point, I've been here 6 months. I don't need any to stay positive. I don't need to worry about feelings. I don't care about efficient job and portfolio. My biggest problem is that I just need a job. And the thing that overlooks is, because, is that really true? The things that it overlooks is, well, number one, it's very challenging right now to even stay positive. And here's some things that you might do to check out to see if really all you really need is a job. Um, think about your resilience. How difficult is it for you to decide what to do next? Ultimately, even in human-centered job search, you're going to get negative feedback, or whether you're still doing a traditional job search, you're going to get some rejection and you're going to hear nothing. So what do you do next? How can you recover? Think about how you balance relaxation and stress. I've read a lot of people are doing 7-day job hunts where they search and get online and do job hunts on job boards 7 days a week. They're sending out applications. Um, I've found that it's very difficult to keep on with your life, especially after 6 months. Just finding humor or finding levity. When things go wrong, it's very difficult. At some point, it's very difficult to even just laugh at yourself or feel okay about your mistakes. Think about the challenges and obstacles. Can you identify a positive outcome to your challenges? Maybe you're not good on camera, or maybe you don't have your brand new and you don't have a whole bunch of portfolio case studies. What's a positive outcome, or what can you do to kind of tackle those? And then how hard and how rigid have you become? Are you willing to take advice from others? So kind of popping back over here, um, don't I just need to I don't, I want to stay positive. I mean, don't tell me to stay positive. I just need support. I would tell you that you might want to look at that interpersonal level to find out if you can try some bold new solutions, like what I'm gonna suggest to you, and do stuff out of your comfort zone. Don't just focus only in on that job hunt and the UX stuff and talking to UX people. You've got to still maintain some sort of sense of wellness. So, in examining the type of action approach that we're trying to combat or we're trying to redesign, I've broken out some of the common actions that are part of common to job hunting. Of course, searching and considering happens in that reflection phase when you're trying to figure out exactly what kind of companies or what kind of positions you want to target. Then you outreach to people. You might start doing LinkedIn. You might start. You're going to talk to somebody in your outreach phase, and then you start to actually apply. And so those are all assertive actions that you can do, and you can set your own goals and do on your own time and at your own pace. But then there's these responsive actions inside of the job hunt, which include your pitch or how you promote yourself. When somebody actually says, hey, you know what? Tell me about what kind of job you're looking for. Or I'd actually like to interview you. Can you send me a resume? And then you have to kind of on the fly put together something that gives them an idea of whether or not you're even worthy of setting up a time to talk, or whether you're worthy of passing on to the hiring manager with that star. And then when you interview, of course, that's another responsive action where somebody's taking interest and they're going to take time to talk to you, but you're also going to take time to talk to them. And so both of y'all back and forth are going to respond to whatever questions and whatever needs. And then lastly, in this negotiation, you've been given an offer, or you've been proposed with an opportunity, a job offer to work. And so now you're going to have to figure out how to make whatever that offer is meet your needs, right? So they're interested, you're interested, so you get into that negotiation phase. But the friction points come with with each of these phases, here's some common feelings that are friction points to some of those assertive actions. This feeling of helplessness, the confusion. All right. Anyway, so these are some friction points. So how do you get, what can you do to design a solution to those friction points to get you further down to feeling empowered? How can you feel more focused rather than confused? And what can you do to feel confident when you're actually having to reach out? So these are the win states that you want to get to. All right. So responsively, when somebody is actually interested in you, how can you turn that shyness into boldness? When talking about your work, how can you feel less defeated and be more resilient after you have to take a rejection? And then what can you do as far as your energy goes? Instead of feeling tired or bored, you want to feel energetic. How can you recover some of that? So I've kind of got to this point, because of how long the current job hunt is the bigger question is how do I keep going? And so that's what I started to design. And I've designed these 9 little methods here. I've got little icons. These 9 little methods were to help me to overcome my biggest challenge of boredom. After about the 9 month point, doing the same cycle over and over again, and getting 2 or 3 third round picks, it just became challenging to just keep going. So I started to challenge myself on how can I change up my routine? How can I get out of the building? How can I search or reach different people? Other than just the online job boards. And so you can see the online job boards is at the very bottom. But I started to consider freelance and temp work instead of just looking for full-time employment, which was my ultimate goal. Because if I could do freelance temp work or even entrepreneur work or side work or gig work or anything temporary, it takes away the whole pressure of the financial strain that I'm going through. And then it allows me to look a little bit further, a little bit longer. Or how can I maybe set myself apart by pursuing localized options or location based options? Because everybody can't get a remote job and everybody can't work a hybrid job that's not in Houston. So I figured, well, let me start targeting those areas and those things. Or let me just drive down the street and just find buildings that are really close that would match both of our needs, and you just come back and look at the career sites of those really close places that I could say, hey, you know what? I'm within 15 minutes. The hybrid model would really work great for me, and so it would be a win-win. Content and Tripwire, there's a whole bunch more here, but this is really more around not just writing out LinkedIn posts, but actually doing some research and finding people's comments, using that as part of your relational networking and making little products, whether they be curated products, whether you just kind of find something that is a helpful tip in an industry or to even to UX designers, or whether it be a full-fledged physical product that you can create or design. But put stuff out there that helps people so that they can find your product and then they start to learn a little bit more about you. All these are, instead of just making side projects, all these are just different ways, again, of going about job hunting rather than just literally doing the same form and sending out the same applications. Another way that I've kept going is, of course, I'm an avid reader. So these are just some of the resources that I would share and I would recommend for anybody. At the end of the day, you can see at the bottom, those are little experiments or little tweaks that I started to build into my regular routine. If you haven't ever heard of Super Better, it's a book, but it's also an app that's available on iOS and the Google Play Store. And it's Jane McGonigal came up with this super better approach to gamify recovering from trauma events. If you're ever going through something hard, I've found that super better is a great little tool to pop open and identify problem areas, make your own little framework for how you can set little small and short goals, and also coming up with a plan. So incrementally and daily, you might come away with small wins so that you can help to process some of the struggle that you're going away with. And if you've never heard of this other book, Play Your Way Sane, I'd encourage you to check that one out as well. Now, I actually listen to audiobooks, so it's a pretty short audiobook. It's really great for background, but it's really infused with improv based exercises so that you can learn how to be more present. You can they're all of them are really like free interactive ways of kind of being mindful. And I started that. It's really helpful. And then lastly, Work Game Perk is an actual project of mine. I would encourage you to you could follow Work Game Perk on Instagram. That's where I post most of the current stuff. I did some stuff on Twitter, but on X, formerly known as Twitter, but I don't do so much there anymore. And I do have a website, and I try to do occasional events. Um, but yeah, so I just curate all of the content related to UX design and wellness there. And I also talk on topics about gamification and that sort of thing, kind of making your UX design career fun. So that's what Work Game Perk is about. All right. So now that I've talked to you about the process of kind of moving through friction points and designing something with that's human inspired, let me show you some examples of how this has worked out for me. So this just kind of says, I use my human-centered approach in my own job hunt, and this is just like a little case study of you can see of how it worked out. So one of the areas that it's really helped me areas that it's really helped me in is my candidate mindset. You can see what my goal was and during that traditional approach. It was really a lot of just focusing on findings, making sure that my resume and portfolio matched whatever job posting that was out there, and trying to get through the ATS so I can get an interview, getting my foot in the door with that interview. That was that traditional mindset. But once I started to design and apply UX design to my job hunt, it really became more about being an advocate and learning how I can understand the needs of whether it be the job, whether it be the needs of a location, an industry, or whether it be even be the needs of a specific person who I find to be a role model, and then build that relationship, and then start to frame my capabilities as a designer, so that I can show that unique value that I offer. So it really became more about designing for the user versus finding a job posting and just designing for a description. Um, this opened up a different outreach strategy, right? So now instead of looking for job postings and trying to hit 30 or 40 applies per day, and then trying to tailor each one of those applications and resumes, I was now using my dynamic dream job matrix. And so I don't have it here, but the job matrix is actually a tool that I can share if you want to follow up with me. It's a Trello board where you can actually break out, and uses something like you basically kind of categorize your job hunt by different goals. And you identify different so I would use it to kind of identify different opportunities. It's kind of like affinity clustering for your job hunt. So you kind of say, hey, you know what, I'd like to pursue a position, a project that's net new design, or not redesign, or maybe I'm really good in the problem phase, or I really like startups, or I need to have this type of, these are my income requirements. And so once you kind of have those as the tool, then you start to go backwards and identify opportunities that can help you meet that. So I would start identifying opportunities rather than identifying job postings. And this gets me out of looking for jobs that are maybe not even, I'm looking for jobs and they're not even posted yet. Now I'm trying to identify opportunities. So I start to talk to people. I start to screen companies. I start to go to the company that has the job, and I look at all of their competitors and start to go to their career pages, because I know that if one company needs that, then at some point, if the industry is competitive enough, the other companies might be pretty close behind. And I started, instead of reaching out with cover letters, I made my own one-page bio that highlighted some of my unique um, contributions that I could bring to that particular company. And I started asking people for introductions. And this is well before the job postings are even there. So now I'm outreaching and I'm building that network. So then my networking mindset actually shifted from sending out as many response messages on LinkedIn using that templated, hey, I'd like to connect with you, just to get them out, to actually customizing a message to start a conversation. I started looking at the profiles of people who I wanted to reach out to and started my own little template and just started filling in the blanks. So I started customizing this, started talking about topics that maybe weren't necessarily related to work. Like I love sketchnoting. A lot of UX designers like to sketch. So that was naturally a skill that I could bring up a topic and show somebody a sketch note of maybe a popular book, or I even have a friend who sketch notes his own football games. And I could share one of those and say, hey, I'd like to talk about this, and then talk about my story. And it's an open approach to opening up that conversation with the person who I need to make a connection with. Definitely requires a little bit more research, and again, taking a user-centered approach. And then finally, when I got to interviews, my at first interviews just felt like they were a pass or fail evaluation. I got my foot in the door, I sent them a resume and an application, and now I needed to show them that I was or speak to them that I was definitely the real deal, that I could do everything that I showed and said on my interview. Whereas once I started taking this UX design approach, understanding those needs and framing skills, I started to have a two-way conversation on interviews, building and spending time on the questions that I would ask, having a notebook in front of me so that while I was listening, I could then bring up topics that I could further the conversation, and ask them great questions that they hadn't even considered. And so the outcome in terms of my brand in my job hunt, you can see over there in the traditional approach was focused on an efficient process for just customizing and getting out as many postings and applying to as many that I could with no storytelling, versus with the UX design approach, I'm actually focusing on conversations. It's actually human based. I'm actually solving problems. I'm actually starting to use my actual UX design skills as my own job hunting tool. And so before and after, you can see how this started to impact some of my job hunting branding materials. You can see this was my portfolio experience before I started to really spend time on this human-centered approach. One of my bigger pain points was, if you look at my case study page, it was very wordy. It was kind of complicated. Um, and I really struggled with a feedback loop. And I changed it like 5 or 6 times. But without a feedback loop, I was relying upon my own design instincts. And I wasn't really figuring out what was working and what wasn't working. So then once I started to UX design my portfolio, I started to, you can see at the top right corner, I started to make design goals. I started to consider, well, you know what? Right now it's very competitive. What is the average amount of time that a UX recruiter would spend on on a portfolio page? And I found that it was like 40 seconds. So that was my goal. How can I make this readable in 40 seconds? How can I make this mobile friendly, the page more mobile friendly? You know, that's all about columning and column widths and making it responsive. And then how can I add in fast and engaging content that's easy to read and easy to consume? So you can see on my homepage there, not only is it very mobile friendly because it's one column, but even from a high level standpoint, it's got two projects and it gets you right into the portfolio instead of having, this whole bucket approach where there's 3 or 4 different things and there's a lot of things going on. The outreach strategy. In that traditional strategy, I had dealt with pain points like continuing to find more job boards, and I was sending out kind of like an old industry manufacturing line, the same ideas, send them out efficiently with a little bit of a tweak, a lot of ideas going out. Nothing really different. And I would run out of job boards or see the same thing on job boards or even start to see that job boards had those fake jobs and get frustrated. I sent out stuff to companies that weren't even really hiring. Again, that feedback loop was a big gap because I didn't know exactly what I needed to change. Everything was pretty much self-diagnosed. Once I started UX designing my own job approach, um, each one of my interactions became a chance for feedback. So I would do send out what I call half-baked ideas, things that I was skills that I was working on, topics that I was interested in, and I was asking for introductions. I was giving favors, or I was complimenting people who are already in that space. I would send out I'm learning this week about animation or micro animation, which UI is one of the areas that I've been trying to build my skills in, more so than UX. And so I would send out maybe a sketch for something and say, hey, you know what? I'm trying to get better at this UI. And I would make an introduction to somebody who was great at UI at a company that I was interested in working for, just getting opinions. And then again, it opens up conversation. If they were interested in helping me, we could then have a conversation about something. And now they actually know me for some work, demonstrating that vulnerability and that authentic needs and wants to grow. That really kind of set me. It was an ability to set me out as a unique person instead of being the person who's just reaching out, looking for someone to give me a job. And then lastly, the networking strategy changed. It was very two-dimensional. It was like going around and around in circles. I struggled with pain points like cold calling. When I didn't know somebody at a company, I was off, and I still do this, but I struggle a lot more with you don't know somebody at a company, you go to LinkedIn and you start sending out connection requests to 6 or 7 people that you probably never talked to after that. So then once I started using stuff like content networking, I was actually doing stuff that I actually enjoyed, but I was applying design to it. The Work Game Perk project, where I was building like interactive games, game interactions on Zoom, where I would get to practice, whiteboarding. Some of the tools in this actual presentation that I can kind of try to share. Um, like curated project products and then building a product pitch around them as to why they would be valuable. Those were actually things that I could share in for content networking, but also put on my portfolio as examples that shows, hey, this guy can really actually do the work, and it shows value. So launching many products and businesses instead of trying to focus on just writing code posts or sending out commenting on the more popular threads on LinkedIn. All right, so we're at this point where I want to talk about some of the pieces that helped me to get through that whole design process. And so I wanted to make sure that I shared some resources that I find to be extremely helpful, so that you might save time and don't have to look and find the exact same people. And so, number one, I want to give a shout out to myself, so that everybody can kind of see. I share content on Instagram, Medium, and Eventbrite. Those are the 3 areas, 3 places you will find more stuff from me. In addition to my portfolio site, Rodney Echols dot design, where I have my own little playground of products and workshops and research pieces that I love to share. Of course, like Zachary mentioned at the top of the hour, I do like to mentor. And I have on occasion I like to do these keynote presentations. And I've tried to work with Huxpa as well as a DT&I. So far I've got 2 of these underneath my belt. So I'm definitely a resource for finding other resources to help you with your job hunt, or finding your own design, your own person that can help you mentor you in design. And so just for UX hunters, just wanted to highlight what I'm kind of giving back on this particular presentation. Of course, you can see how I have a formula and I'm able to define patterns and take observations and turn those into insights that you can actually use by with my communication skills and my ability to research. I'm able to calculate design outcomes. Um, I can take those some of the designs and tell you how they would actually help you and what the improvement, what the before and after actually looks like and why that matters. And then what I can actually do also is I can inspire and solve real problems through design iterations and testing. So here's some other resources that have been very helpful. They're a mixture of curators, network partners, and people who I just personally love and adore. And then there's several communities that I found to be really great. Um, so Javier Andres, he puts out this curated list, a weekly list for UX research positions. He does an awesome job of curating it by industry. And so does I have this is actually wrong. This is not Vitaly Friedman. I missed that. But this is another person. She puts out one for ed tech. I can't remember her name right at the moment, but I'll have to correct that. Nick Babbage is my all-time favorite person on LinkedIn. He puts out the best UX tools and artifacts. If you're trying to improve your design maturity, build systems and work tools for your own UX process, I definitely recommend Nick. I follow him on LinkedIn, but I know he's also on X, and I don't think I found as much stuff there because it's a lot noisier of a platform. Aneta Kamik is quickly becoming one of my favorite content creators because she is a senior UX designer, but she specializes in portfolio design and design maturity topics. She does a weekly post on Substack, and she's on LinkedIn all the time. And her Instagram feed is a great place to find little quick snippets that you can use all the time. Vitaly Friedman has been someone who I've followed for years. Smashing Magazine has useful UX tools, and he recently put out this list that I reposted on LinkedIn, where he has just created a massive curation of UX job hunting tools. Sarah Duty, I follow her on YouTube. I definitely recommend her. I followed her for years, and I get her newsletter. She specifically focuses on career growth around UX. She's also on LinkedIn. She has these tools called, one of them is called the UX Career Diary. So if you're into doing side projects like me, she can help you put together a framework of how to turn those side projects into portfolio additions. Um, uh, Aneta is also really good with helping you to write your portfolio as well. Amber Fields, I started following Amber. She has a community called Blacks in UX. It's a community around inclusivity in tech, specifically around helping people of color to find a support community um, in UX design. She's awesome on LinkedIn. I don't have this mentioned, but she's also has a very personable experience on Instagram. Jennifer Blatz, really great person, really great community around. It's called UX and User Research and Design. I think it's UX R&D. Really great in LinkedIn profile. She's always posting other resources, and she also does events on, I think it's on Meetup. And then Design Buddies, I found this. This is old school. If you used to ever use forums and form boards, Design Buddies has kind of taken that concept and put it um, on Discord. That's that icon if you're not familiar. But they're also really she's Gracie Ling is very active on in LinkedIn as well. So I these are some curated resources. I mentioned about giving away products. This is how one of them might look. Curated products just like this. where you can just kind of record a video of what really impacts you and why it's cool and why it's awesome. You paste something like this in YouTube, and then you create a link and you put it in LinkedIn, and there you go. Now you're giving away a valuable tool or a product that shows that you actually have a knowledge in a specific area. That's a lot better than sending out just random, I want to connect with you messages. And so where do we go from here? Well, I've the first 50 minutes of this talk, of this presentation, I wanted to just kind of give you guys the framework to kind of open up the conversation about job hunts. So now what I would like to do is I would like to invite anybody who is open to it over to Menti. I've got the post right here and the link to go over to the Menti to join a conversation about what everybody else's job hunt has been like throughout this particular period. There's some questions, of course, that I've assumed, like specifically, there's just some fuzziness about how long job hunts are taking. So I'd love to talk and hear what everybody else has to say over there on Menti. So I'm gonna flip over there, and then we can come off of mute and we'll walk through the Menti questions. And I'd love to hear feedback as we answer those questions. It's just pretty informal. It's not I don't intend it to be as regimented, but we can just kind of respect each other and talk one at a time. So I'm over here, present. All right, let me get this so I can see, and I'll take. All right, turning on my camera. Oop, I was trying to turn my camera on. Cool. Yeah, I'll drop. Oh yes. Oh, thanks, Zachary. So he's dropped the link in there. Okay, cool. So the first question that I had, and I'd love to hear again, I'd love to hear responses. Um, wait, one question. 7 players already ready. Okay, enter. I've actually never used Menti before, so I'm experimenting a little bit here. So how long have you been job hunting? Let me see. Let's see what the responses look like. Anybody? One, two, four, five. Okay, let me see. I wonder how, let me see if I can find, uh, okay, let's see. There is no correct answer. All right. It looks like 2 months, upwards of 5 to 6 months. Okay, and so you can see the 12 to 13 months. So that's kind of my same experience as well. Again, the research that I found is saying that 3 to 6 months. So this is just if you are hunting for more than 6 months, please don't feel discouraged. Um, I've spent 6 months, and we're about to go into the holiday season. A lot of things that are impacting how long it's taking to find opportunities and actually hear back from people. It's out of our control. As long as you're continuing to move forward, and this is one of the reasons that's really important about this design approach. As long as you're continuing to move forward and you're not just doing the same things over and over again and you're staying open, it's gonna happen for you. So that's why I wanted to ask that question. All right, here go players, 10 players ready. Okay, let's see. Oh, where did the question go? We did that one. Okay, there we go. Here's the next question. Sorry for the technical difficulty. So, which of these job hunt strategies have you used in your current job hunt? So now the job hunt strategies that I have listed, there are a lot of the ones that some of the ones that I have talked about. They're named a little bit differently, but they were talked about in my 9 methods. whether no, actually, these aren't the ones. These are some of the job hunt strategies that I talked about in my patterns that I witnessed. Online job hunt. Let's see what we've got. Yep, focusing on local target. That's a really good one. Actually, once I had around 8 months, once I started to really start to find opportunities in Houston, even trying to find opportunities outside of just UX design, I started to get an influx in interviews. So yes, it's very encouraging to see that a lot more people are open to going back to work. I mentioned in one of my resources that I was talking to Amber. She was talking to me. I had a conversation with her over with Black UX Labs, and she was telling me exactly how difficult and challenging it is right now, specifically trying to find remote work. It's almost like the secret is out, and if you're still looking and only open to remote work, you might be looking for quite a bit longer because of the competition level. So I'm glad that a lot of people are going in that. Now you can see here some of the outliers that people aren't using. So if you're looking for ways to maybe differentiate yourself, that content marketing, I can tell you right now, you can see two people are doing that. Two people are really trying to build more flexibility into their portfolios. And then two people are sinking or focusing in that government and public sector area. So those are some ways that if you have come up with, hey, I don't know what to do next, those are some opportunities you can kind of see there. Out for there. Okay, let's see what we got next. Answer faster. Not really. Question four. Did it go through? Hold on. I'm not really sure if I like Minty that much. Sorry, guys. It's not. All right, let me go back. Get out of presentation mode and look. Just look. Okay, we did the job hunt strategies. So another part of this conversation. All right, so which phase of your job hunt journey have you had the most challenge in? All right, let's see if we can get there. That's what we're asking. Answer fast to get more points. And then let's see. There we go. Which phase of your job hunt journey have you had the most challenge in? So I've mentioned, of course, these are the four phases. That reflection phase, that's really trying to figure out what you actually want, whether or not you want to put yourself out there right now or you want to stay where you're at. Or, I mean, if you're on the job market, one of the things about the reflection phase is, do you want to still stay in UX? And I'm going to have a questions about that one. Outreach. Okay, I that's interesting. Outreaches, that's a lot about the networking part that I spent quite a bit of time talking through on this particular presentation. So hopefully maybe some people take away some different tips on what they can do. And I will say, you know, on that last question, content networking was one of those that it's few people are doing. It does take a bit of time, but I mean, if you really think about it as uh, you know, as a UX designer, we typically always deliver a product, whether it's a whiteboarding session, whether it's a work product. You can start to do those and deliver those in your outreach instead of just thinking about writing content. You know, any kind of a designer delivers. So it's just kind of a different way of thinking about content marketing. All right, let's see. Go to the next one. I think I figured it out. All right, so the next question I have, and I think the next question I have is, right, what do you do to stand out when you're looking for a job? Just interested in what other people are doing. I talked about some of my hobbies. I've talked about the approach of building in your hobbies, causes, interests, or all those things. I'm just interested in what other people are doing, if they're taking that approach or if they're trying to still go for the first come, first serve ATS. They maybe some people have perfected the ATS traditional strategy. Um, Interested in what people are doing. There's no correct answer. Okay, focus on specialty area. Okay. Um, Personalized cover letters, specifically um how I transitioned. Okay, so personal story, that's interesting. Learning on experience, or leaning on their experience. Okay. So yeah, so the thing is here again, there's no right or wrong answer in this presentation. I've kind of contrasted more of a traditional approach versus a like a UX designed approach. The one thing that I would say, because I lean on my experience a lot as well, is that right now I've found in the market a lot of people have a UX approach, a user defined approach, a human centered approach. All of the approaches are pretty much done. And so you're going to then need to at least build some layer of soft skill, whether it's storytelling. Again, I've talked about content marketing or branding yourself so that you can actually do something that's a little bit unique and different. So again, that's my suggestion. Definitely everybody's going to do something that fits for them. But I found that leaning on my experience, I have 7 years experience doing UX work. I have a pretty good client portfolio and I have experience doing exactly what I'm looking for. However, I've still been through four third rounds and not been selected. So, they told me it wasn't my experience. They picked somebody who had a specific match quality that I just didn't have. So that's my 2 cents on the experience part. A lot of us have the same amount of experience. In terms of standing out, you're gonna have to be able to craft that into a unique value proposition. All right. So here's kind of related to that: hobbies, beliefs, curiosity, what you're curious about, unique interests or experience. They're all key parts of your design profile that can make your portfolio stand out. So I know I just asked what everybody's doing. This is really just kind of getting everybody to think along those same lines of a user centric approach to your job hunt. And so the question that I have is, um, name one hobby, interest, experience, cause, something that you're curious about that you could possibly integrate into your job hunt. So if you happen to be stuck on what to do next, this might be something that if you want to answer this question, that maybe you can start to do that's a little bit different. Um, it's also one of those that if you're really stuck in that work-life balance part of the job hunt, um, taking some time to do something that you are really passionate about and give yourself that something back, it can really boost your spirits for a week. And I found that to be helpful too, because the job hunt really is more a matter of weeks than it is a matter of days. I've broken everything down into months, but it really is week to week. All right, beliefs, good. Interesting in what belief, but that's cool. I kind of answered the question a little bit differently. Um, some of the things that I've kind of noted that UX designers, and of course, being a UX designer, I have talked about my interest in sustainable design, and that's really from a personal UX designer. How can you sustain your career happiness or your career wellness? That's the type of belief. A lot of people are really into accessibility, and so they really feel like inclusivity and accessibility should be integrated into design. If that's the type of belief, integrate that into your portfolio. Really become an advocate for that inside your portfolio pieces or your personal pitch. Put those pieces in there. And so those will help you to stand out because maybe you're the senior designer who's in the Houston area and you have a blog about accessibility. That's going to be a lot rarer than a senior level designer who's in Houston and he only works for oil and gas companies. There are a lot of us out there. There's at least 9 or 10 of us out there because of the big gas companies that are out there work in the area. Nonprofit work, that's a great way to practice that temp freelance way of kind of standing out. You get your foot in the door. Same thing with volunteering and with nonprofits. So they're very good. Those are very good ways of kind of promoting a cause and helping you to stand out. I'm interested. and this the way this question works is you kind of pick strongly, or you don't have to answer all of them, but I'm just interested in the temperature about the job market. I've seen a lot of people who say, I don't care about how I feel. I just need a job. I'm gonna keep doing this until I get a job. The thing that you're discrediting is, because we're all people, all of these feelings are a part of that getting a job. Oh, great. It looks a lot of people feel very positive about things. Okay, there we go. Now it's kind of sliding back. Um, it's very natural right now with the way the job hunt is going, and the current state of our government in an election year, that everything is not perfect and hunky-dory, and it's maybe on a sliding scale. But I was just interested in this question is just to understand what the temperature is like out there. And it looks like people feel the most is confused. There's a lot of scared. I feel scared. I feel defeated. Again, that longer job hunt, you go through the cycle, that roller coaster cycle a few times, and it's hard to get back up. Throughout the writing of this and creation of this presentation, I actually did get hired on for a position where I'll be starting as a consultant at Exxon, working with Aquint. Um, and so I'm at this point where I don't really want to feel excited until I actually get there and I get the first check. I know things can change, and I'm excited. I'm ready to get there and ready for it to get going, and excited to meet people on Monday. But this has been a long road, and I know things happen. So definitely understand, on my own personal survey, defeated was the more popular sentiment. But it's great to see that there's confusion, and it shouldn't be great to see that, but I can see that there's confusion and fear out there as well. All right. So that's the end of my Mentimeter. If there aren't any, I'll open it up there. If there aren't any comments or questions, I can turn it back over to Zachary, um, and give everybody like 20 or 30 minutes back. But definitely, if there are comments or questions, I'm open to sticking around and talking and sharing.
Yeah, everybody. So if you have a question that you want to ask Rodney about his experience, or share something that you've experienced while you were on job hunt, feel free to raise your hand or just come off mute. And we can kind of have just a candid conversation about what these are like for everybody, and just share our experiences amongst the group. No questions. We must have done an excellent job answering everything for everyone.
Yeah, it was a lot of talking and chatting. I'm pretty sure, I'm hoping that at the very end of this, that somebody could relate to something. Because I've had the opportunity to have a few really close colleagues that have supported me by, just even if it's just chats and texts and positive messages. I know that even though a year is a long time to be between jobs, I'm not the only one, and it's not just me. So if anybody gets anything from this, please know that it's not just you. I mean, I've talked to recruiters, and they've told me that right now people are showing up to job interviews, and they feel so beaten down about their own skills, and there's nothing that they can do about it. So it's not you. If anybody hears that, that's a success on this presentation.
So we had a really good question just come in through the chat.
Oh yeah.
We had someone looking for tips on how to get back up after experiencing a huge disappointment, such as receiving a rejection letter after having a really positive interview.
So if does anybody else want to share? If not, I can definitely share a very relatable experience. So just today, even though I've accepted a position and I'm ready to go, I had been been interviewing with a company for 5 weeks, and they both came in at the same time. The Exxon position came in, and I'm happy to get that one. But I had another company who I have been working with or applying with over the last 8 weeks. And 3 weeks ago, I had my fifth round interview, and they ghosted me for the last 3 weeks. And I told them, I'm like, I'm trying to get so very defeated. I'm able to get over it now because I have a place to go on Monday. But the two other times that happened to me, I really had to go in and do side projects. I feel like I have a Notion booklet, a Notion notebook called Creative Therapy. Um, and so really going back and practicing my design work, putting some processes in place where, I like to sketch note. I like to design interactive games, like Zoom games. I even started, a hobby of trying to be a bar trivia host. Um, just anything till I could keep practicing facilitation, research, design, experience. I would say that was the best thing for me in terms of getting back over the rejection. Just going back out there and making sure to continue living life and staying curious, and then moving on past it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds great. Um, I have a question. So you had, everyone knows that putting together a portfolio, it's essential to get hired, in the market today and just in general. And not only did you make a portfolio, but you revised one. How did you get past that hump of just kind of getting everything on paper and getting all of your work out there and organizing it? Because I know it can be really daunting to a lot of people.
Iterative design. I didn't put very much pressure on my first version. And in fact, you saw the first version had all kind of design. There was a lot more deliberateness that I needed to put to my portfolio strategy. Um, Emmet, I mentioned her as one of the resources. I would recommend anybody if I were starting over and I'd seen her. She has reviewed over 300 UX design portfolios, and she has really actionable uh tips. So I would say that would be my advice. Iterative design, consider everything a draft, start to build your feedback loop, and then I would recommend a resource like her.
Sure, absolutely. We had another good question that says, what tool did you use for your portfolio? And are there any that you would recommend?
Yeah, I've used two different tools. My very first, I've always had a WordPress site. But I tried a Squarespace site, and I didn't like the flexibility. Um, So I would recommend WordPress just because I'm more comfortable with that. But I've also tried to tinker around with Framer. I would say Framer is probably a really good platform, especially if you're a designer and you like Figma. You can integrate Framer or even Wix. They have some tools now where you can lay out and design your whole portfolio in Figma and then integrate that with Wix or with Framer and not have to worry about coding HTML.
That's awesome. And then someone's asking, what was the name that you shared for the portfolio resources again?
Sure. Let me put her name in here. Her name is Aneta. Uh-oh, I'm sharing. Okay, let me see. So her name is Aneta Kimisik. And again, if you don't want to follow her on Instagram, check her out on LinkedIn. Check her out on Instagram. She posts a lot of the same stuff on both places, and she also has a Substack, and she also has, I think it's called UX Design Portfolio Exercise. I think that's the name. She has a link tree. If you go to her Instagram, she has a link tree where, again, her specialization or her area of specialization is UX portfolio advising. Um, and she does I found her stuff to be really good. As a senior designer, she encourages, design maturity. She encourages soft skills that would be very helpful to you standing out. She also talks through like everything from simple choices about which portfolio pieces to put in to How do you design design your design impact statements? How do you show and tell versus tell? How do you make your case study shorter? I mean, she has a lot of really good stuff. If you're any have ever tried to design a portfolio, you go take a look at any of her stuff, you'd be like, man, I never thought about that. But it's all a UX design related um feedback.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, this is a really interesting question about the market in general.
Mm.
So it's asking how the demand for AI is affecting entry-level jobs. In your search, do you see anything
Mm.
like that reflected in any of the jobs that you were seeing posted?
I've actually had two interviews, and they've asked about AI in my portfolio or what my experience with AI has been. And it's intimidating because I will tell you, as a senior level designer, I've gotten used to doing things a certain way. I am very curious and interested in AI, but if you ask me a question about AI in my portfolio, I have this perfection standard to where I want to have a piece of work that's by a legitimized company, and I would say start small. AI Design X. There's another community that I can try to look it up real quick and paste it into the chat. They're a community that's on Slack, and they are a community around getting you your first AI design portfolio piece or projects and side projects. But I would say to start small. Start with your standard boot camp classes. Google has a really great class around AI. And then as far as UX design work, so I'm sorry, UI design work for AI. I mean, you could start with curation and start to understand what types of design components in a design system are really common to AI. That's a really good place to start. As far as it impacting entry-level design jobs, uh, be prepared. I would tell you to be prepared for right now, if you were entry level AI, entry level designer, be prepared that they're going to ask you stuff that you're going to be the expert. As a UX and UI designer, I think a lot of companies don't have a roadmap or solution with AI design in it. So if you can start to show components for I think they're gonna ask you, and it's gonna be an opportunity to learn. That's my take on it. It's almost a really great opportunity to be at the entry level in AI right now because you can join a company, um, and they will probably hire you because they don't have as much of an investment in your salary, but you also don't have that rigid background of doing things a certain way. And so if you can get in, I think it's a great time for AI jobs, for an entry level AI job. If you have AI, some sort of any kind of AI experience and you're not intimidated by it, that would be my experience.
Yeah, awesome. And then just so
Hopefully
that
that helped.
everyone can know, yeah, I think you did a really good job addressing that. And just so that everyone can know, we mentioned curating these resources for everybody. Is there a place they're going to be able to go to pick up your slide deck from today?
Sure, I can export it out. You know what I can do? I can export it. Well, let me see. I was thinking I could export it out as a link, and then if you wanted to put it on the YouTube as a PDF, but I don't know where we would host it. So, I mean, I can export the slide deck out for sure. If you want, I can I don't know. Is it easier to do an email? I don't know how. I don't mind sharing. Or if you follow me on LinkedIn, you can always message me there, and I can provide you with. I love answering questions because, like I said, I love mentoring. So if you want to follow me on LinkedIn, if you can't find it, I can definitely provide the link. I'll post it on my LinkedIn. I'll post the PowerPoint deck on my LinkedIn. So if you want to review any of that, stuff beyond just the YouTube, I'll probably make a follow-up post with more resources on LinkedIn for sure.
Yeah, that'd be great. So keep an eye out for that. We'll make sure that we reshare that post through the Huxpo LinkedIn page. And that will link to all of the curated resources for you to go back and review whenever everybody has a second or would like to go back and review any of the information. Before we go ahead and wrap up, does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to make sure that they ask Rodney before we go? All right, awesome. Well, I think oh, there's something came into the chat. Okay, absolutely, of course. Fantastic. That's everything from everybody. I think we'll go ahead and give everybody just a couple minutes of their evening back. Thanks everybody for attending. Rodney, thank you so much for coming back and speaking with us. We'll have to have you back another time. And we'll go ahead and call that a meeting. The YouTube video will be posted on LinkedIn and on our YouTube channel within the week. And hopefully by then we'll have everybody's resources. Rodney, do you want to drop your LinkedIn in the chat so everyone can go in and give you a connection?
Yes. And happy networking, everybody. I know that sounds like that's kind of a intimidating thing, getting out with the outreach and talking to people and sending cold messages. I mean, but it really isn't. It isn't as daunting of a task as it has to be. So there we go. There's my LinkedIn. I just put it in the chat. Feel free to reach out. If I can help anybody else with their networking strategy or anything like that, I'd love to make introductions. So yep, have a good evening. And thank you everybody
Awesome.
for staying on this long.
Thank everybody so much. Y'all all have a great rest of your night. Take care and be safe out there.
Bye-bye.